VLSos here. This is a video lesson on graph. There's lots to be said about graphs and graphing. What we're going to do here is we're going to review the parts in the vocabulary of a two-dimensional graph. A number line is a graph, a simple graph. But what most people think of when using the word graph is two number lines that cross one another to make a two-dimensional graph. The fancy word for a two-dimensional graph that is something that we use quite a bit in high school mathematics is a coordinate plane. A graph, in general, is a visual representation and what we represent is data and relations. Data is a fancy word for information. And typically the information comes from measurement. I hope I'm spelling things correctly. Relations are equations and that is mathematics that uses the comparison symbol equal sign. We also can graph inequalities. Mathematics that uses the comparison symbols less than, greater than, less than, equal to, greater than, equal to, and uncommonly also not equal to. We graph information, measurement, equations, and inequalities. And we do that on a coordinate plane that's made by two intersecting number lines. And where they intersect, we call it the origin. And the origin has coordinates 0, 0. We use tick marks to show the distance on our number lines away from the origin. And when we go to the right of the origin, we go in the positive direction. When we go to the left, we go in the negative direction. Left and right is on a number line that we call the horizontal axis. And typically we give the letter X to represent the horizontal axis. We can go up and down on the axis when we go on a second axis, and when we go up, we go in the positive direction. When we go down, we go in the negative direction on that axis. And the axis that goes up and down is called the vertical axis. We typically assign the letter Y to represent the vertical axis. When these axes cross, they create four regions. We call them quadrants, and we label the region that is both in the positive, on the positive x-axis and positive y-axis, quadrant 1, and we symbolize that quadrant 1 with a Q and an I. Quadrant 1. Quadrant 2 is where the vertical axis is positive and the horizontal axis is negative. We symbolize that Q2 for quadrant 2. The Q is for quadrant. Quadrant 3 is where the horizontal axis and the vertical axis are both negative. Q4, that's QIV, Roman numerals I and then V represent the number 4. Quadrant 4 is where the horizontal axis is positive and the vertical axis is negative. I'm going to label this tick mark at -2. Graphs are for plotting points, representing information and measurement visually by plotting on the coordinate plane. If I put a dot at this location, I could label this location with a name, anything I choose, in this case P. And I could give the coordinates for P, the two numbers to locate this point relative to the origin. The two numbers are, first, the number that I must go on the horizontal axis, in this case 3. The second number is where I must go on the vertical axis, in this case -2. This is a point that has coordinates. The point name is P, and the coordinates are 3, -2. We often use a table or a T-table as a way to organize points for graphing. A T-table is a way to organize points. For graphing. And we call it a T-table because we can make the form of a T, list values for X and Y that make coordinates to plot. For example, the plotted point P could be information in our table where X is equal to 3, Y is equal to -2. I could put other information into my table. In this case, 4, 3 means to plot the point where X is 4 and Y is 3.